It is spring break weekend. Millions of Americans are heading to airports right now. Families with strollers and car seats and crying toddlers and one check the bag. They're definitely going to have to pay extra for it. And when they get to security, the line stretches out of the terminal, down the escalator, out the door. JFK Airport, 29% of TSA agent called out. Atlanta, 32% no-show. New Orleans, 27% absent. Small airports potentially shutting down security lanes entirely. Why? Because the United States government has not paid its own airport security agents in weeks. We have a partial government shutdown. 366 TSA officers have already quit. The ones who stayed are working for free, sleeping in their cars, relying on food pantries, taking second jobs just to afford gas to get to the job where they are not being paid. And on spring break Saturday, the man who helped to design this chaos posted on X, "I would like to offer to pay the salaries of TSA personnel." That man is Elon Musk, the richest man on earth, a former head of DOGE, the department that fight federal workers, Trump's closest ally. And the offer he made is completely, unambiguously federally illegal. Welcome to the show. I'm Davy Jones Carpenter, and today we're talking about the greatest PR stunt in the history of self-inflicted government disasters. Here is exactly what Musk posted on X, his own platform, at the crack of dawn, spring break Saturday. "I would like to offer to pay the salaries of TSA personnel during this funding impasse. It is negatively affecting the lives of so many Americans at airports throughout the country. Noble, generous, headline-grabbing, and legally impossible." Let me explain exactly why. Philip Kendreba, a professor of national security policy and budgeting at Duke University, put it plainly: any money donated to the federal government goes into the treasury. That doesn't mean that an agency has the authority to take it out. In plain English, even if Musk wired every penny of the required salary directly to the U.S. Treasury right now, the TSA cannot touch it without a congressional appropriation. The money would sit in a federal account, inaccessible, while TSA agents stand in security lines working for $0. And there is a second legal layer. Federal law generally prohibits government employees from receiving outside compensation related to their official duties. A private billionaire and not just a Venmo, the federal workforce. That is not how the United States government works. That is how a company town works. And the distinction between those two things is one of the most important distinctions in American democracy. Senator Susan Collins called the offer very fair and reasonable. A Duke professor called it legally impossible. I will let you decide which of those two people has spent more time reading federal appropriations law. Now, I need to give you the full picture of who Elon Musk is in relation to this specific crisis, because context is everything. January 2025, Trump creates a Department of Government Efficiency. Musk is appointed to lead it. DOGE's state emission / federal spending, fire federal workers, got the bureaucracy. Musk called the federal employees the deep state, posts a list of agencies to eliminate, celebrates every firing publicly on X. February of 2026, Congress lets the DHS funding expire amid a political standoff over immigration enforcement. 50,000 to 61,000 TSA officers began working without pay. This is the third funding lapse in 6 months, following a record 23 days shutdown and a brief one in January. March 2026, week 4, 366 agents have quit. Absentee rates hitting 29, 32, 27% at major airports. TSA union warns security risk will get worse. Deputy TSA administrator says small airports may temporarily shut down. March 21st of 2026, spring break Saturday, Elon Musk posts on a platform he owns, "I would like to pay the salaries." This is the arsonist showing up with a garden hose. This is Tony Stark selling weapons to both sides and then putting on a suit to stop the war. This is the monopoly man landing on free parking and acting like he invented generosity. DOGE, that's his own creation, implemented a federal hiring freeze. That hiring freeze is applied to TSA, which means as agents quit during the shutdown, the TSA cannot replace them because of the hiring freeze. fees that Musk's department created. And now Musk wants to pay the people he helped to strand a legal framework that makes his offer impossible to execute. In The Simpsons, and this is a real episode, Homer causes a nuclear meltdown at the power plant and then tries to fix it with a sandwich. I'm not saying Elon Musk is Homer Simpson. Homer Simpson at least knew the sandwich would not work. And here is something that nobody is saying loudly enough this morning. The President of the United States has said nothing about this. Nothing about the 366 agents who quit. Nothing about the family standing in 3-hour security lines on spring break weekend. Nothing about the small airports considering shutting down security lanes. Trump's own transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, has said that TSA workers are set to miss their second full paycheck on March the 27th. A second paycheck gone. And the president is, where exactly? The man who said he could fix everything on day one. The man who said anytime he wants something to end will end. The man who posted, "We do not need the help of anyone," in all caps, about a war he started cannot end a domestic funding dispute that is leaving airport security workers choosing between going to work and buying groceries. So Musk stepped in on X on spring break Saturday, an offer that is legally impossible, and the internet called him a hero. This is the plot of Don't Look Up. Comet is coming. The president is distracted. The billionaire offers a solution that cannot work, and everyone applauds the gesture, instead of demanding the government to do its actual job. Now, I want to answer the deeper question underneath this story because it matters more than the TSA offer itself. And the most influential person in America, arguably the most influential private citizen on earth, steps into a government failure, offers to fix it. Is that a solace or an impediment to the greatest of this country? The case for solace is real, and I will not dismiss it. TSA agents are sleeping in their cars. They're going to food pantries. A TSA union vice president said agents do not even have enough money for gas to drive to the job where they are working for free. In that context, if a billionaire genuinely tried to bridge that gap, the human impulse to call that generous is completely understandable. Senator Fetterman, the only Democrat across the aisle on this, called it incredibly generous, and in terms of intent, maybe it was. But here's the impediment, and it is a profound one. When a private citizen, even a well-intentioned one, starts offering to fund the operations of federal government, it creates a precedent that is genuinely dangerous. It says the government does not need to function. Someone else will cover it. It normalizes the idea that the richest man in America is a safety net to 355 million people. Fun fact, the average TSA officer earns about $50,000 a year. Elon Musk made more than that in the time it took him to type his X post. His net worth is approximately $300 billion. The total annual TSA payroll is roughly $4 billion. He could theoretically fund the entire TSA for 75 years and still be one of the 10 richest people on earth. But that is not how a democracy is supposed to work. In a democracy, the government is funding by the people through taxes or Congress through a process that is supposed to be insulated from the preferences of a single private individual, no matter how rich. The moment that process breaks down and a billionaire steps in, the question is no longer, is he generous? The question is, what does he want in return? Musk has government contracts worth billions through SpaceX. He runs Tesla, which has regulatory relationship with the federal government. He owns X, which has content moderation agreements with federal agencies. He led Doge, which shaped the very crisis he is offering to solve. He is not a neutral party. He is a deeply interested one. There is a historical concept called a company town. It dates back to the Industrial Revolution. A company comes into a region, builds the houses, owns the stores, runs the school, pays the wages, controls the roads. The workers are grateful. They have shelter, food, employment. The company is generous until it's not. The company town worked for the company because the workers had nowhere else to go. Their entire existence was structured around one entity's good goodwill. And the moment that goodwill was withdrawn, or the moment workers tried to unionize, demanded better conditions, voted the wrong way, the company simply turned off the lights. Now, I'm not saying Elon Musk is building a company town, but I'm saying that when the richest man on earth owns the social media platform where political discourse happens, runs the rocket company that launches government satellites, manufactures the electric cars that receive federal subsidies, leads the government efficiency department that fires federal workers, and then offers to personally fund the federal workers he helps strand, the question or dependency is not paranoid. It is the most American question you can ask. The founding fathers designed a system of checks and balances specifically to prevent any single entity, king, corporation, or individual from becoming indispensable to the functioning of the republic. What we are watching this spring break weekend is a stress test of that design, and the design is not passing. Let me give you the full cinematic lineup because Hollywood has been warning us about this exact story for decades. We just kept watching as entertainment. Iron Man 2008. Tony Stark spends years selling weapons that destabilize the world, then has a change of heart and becomes Iron Man to clean up the mess. He is celebrated as a hero. Weapons are rarely mentioned again. Musk helped design the Doge cuts that destabilized the federal workforce. Now he wants to be Iron Man for the TSA. The Doge cuts were not being mentioned on Fox News. The Dark Knight Rises 2012. Bane tells Gotham, the powerful built this city on your backs and then abandon you. He is wrong about the solution, but right about the diagnosis. When a billionaire becomes the only entity capable of funding basic government services, Bane's speech starts sounding less like the villainy and more like a structural observation. The entire run. Selena Meyer spans 7 seasons making everything worse while insisting she is the only one who can fix it. The government lurches from crisis to crisis. Nobody is ever held accountable. The finale reveals it was always about the legacy, never the people. This administration is Veep without the laugh track. Succession. After Logan Roy dies, his children spend this entire season performing grief while fighting over the empire. The people who actually kept the company running, workers, the staff, the journalists, are irrelevant to the succession battle. The TSA agents sleeping in their cars are the waystar. Employees in the background of every board meeting scene. Here is what is actually needed, and it is not complicated. Congress needs to fund the Department of Homeland Security. That is it. That is the solution. Not a billionaire's tweet, not a legal impossibility, not a PR stunt on spring break Saturday. Congress funding DHS. So funding lapse began because the Democrats demanding policy changes in immigration enforcement, specifically after 2 U.S. citizens, Alex Preedy and Renee Good, were killed during a large-scale federal immigration operation in Minneapolis. They wanted warrants before agents enter homes, visible identifications on uniforms, restrictions on face coverings during operations. Republicans refused to include those conditions. The funding lapsed. Week 1 became week 4. Those are the stakes. On one side, the deaths of 2 American citizens during a federal operation. On the other side, 366 TSA agents who quit, 50,000 working without pay, airports in chaos on the busiest travel weekend of the year. And in the middle of that deadlock, a man who has never been elected to anything posted on his own platform, but he would like to fix it illegally without addressing the underlying issue, without addressing the underlying dispute, without pressuring Congress, without mentioning the 2 Americans who died in Minneapolis, without acknowledging the hiring freeze his own department created. Fun fact, in 1835, Andrew Jackson paid off the entire national debt. It is the only time in American history the national debt reached 0. It took 1 year for the country to go back into debt because you cannot solve a structural problem with a one-time payment, not in 1835, not in 2026, not on X. The TSA agent at JFK who called out yesterday morning, the one counted in that 29% no-show rate, and not called out because they wanted to. They called out because weeks of no pay, weeks of impossible choices, rent or gas, food or utilities, show up or stay home. These are the people who stand between every American traveler and a security threat every single day. 6 in the morning, midnight shifts, holidays, spring break. They show up, they screen, they protect. And this administration, the one that renamed the Department of Defense, the Department of War, that said it fights to win without apology or mercy, that posted, "We do not need the help of anyone," in all caps, cannot write a check to the people protecting the airports of its own country. Elon Musk's offer was many things. It was generous in impulse. It was impossible in practice. It was self-serving in execution. Posted on his own platform, generating headlines that redirect attention from the cause to the gesture. It was the arsonist arriving with a garden hose, and it was, above everything else, a reminder that when government fails, someone always steps in to fill the vacuum, and that someone is never neutral. The question is not whether Musk is generous. The question is, so why do we keep accepting a country where a single billionaire's generosity is more reliable than the United States Congress? Subscribe. Every day we come here and ask the questions that the headlines bury under the gestures. I'm Davy Jones, Captain Tear. I'll see you tomorrow.